For 6,000 years, longer than any other profession in this series, people earned their living carrying water. In 19th century Paris alone, 20,000 workers hauled water up 6 flights of stairs, door to door, bucket by bucket. You paid by the floor. The higher you lived, the more your water cost. Then plumbing arrived and erased 20,000 jobs in a single generation. But here's what most people don't realize. For roughly 2 billion people on Earth, this job still exists, right now. Hey, welcome to Forgotten Trades, where we dig into extinct jobs and forgotten professions in a way that actually makes sense. If you're new here, consider subscribing. We cover one lost trade per video, and this one might be the wildest yet. Quick note before we start. Some of the ancient estimates in this video are based on archaeological ranges and historical records that scholars still debate. I'll stick to what's well documented, but when something's approximate, I'll say so. Now here's the plan. First, we're going back to ancient Sumer to find where the water carrier job actually began and why it might be the single longest-running profession in water history. Second, we'll land in 19th century Paris, where 20,000 people did this work every single day. Third, I'll break down how water was priced like a luxury commodity, because it was. Fourth, we'll cover the plumbing history that killed the profession almost overnight. And fifth, stay for this one, I'll explain why this so-called extinct delivery job never actually went extinct. Let's get into it. The water carrier job doesn't begin in Paris. It doesn't begin in Rome. It begins in one of the earliest cities humans ever built. In ancient Sumer, in what's now southern Iraq, roughly 6,000 years ago. Here's the situation. People started clustering into cities for the first time around 4000 BC. They had the Tigris and Euphrates rivers nearby, but rivers don't climb hills. Rivers don't walk into homes. The moment you build a settlement even a short distance from the water source, you create a gap. And someone has to fill it. Literally. That someone was a water carrier. A person with a yoke across their shoulders, buckets on each side, walking back and forth between the river and the people who needed to drink, cook, and wash. This is one of the oldest ancient professions we can trace. Not because anyone wrote a job description, but because every civilization that followed did the exact same thing. Egypt, Greece, Rome, medieval Europe, the Islamic Golden Age, all of them had water carriers. The tools barely changed. The yoke, the buckets, the legs. For thousands of years, that was the entire system. Now, have you ever thought about why this job lasted so long? That's what makes it different from everything else we've covered on this channel. Other trades disappeared because the need disappeared. But the need for water never went anywhere. Which brings us to the place where this profession hit its absolute peak. Let's jump forward to 19th century Paris, because this is where the water carrier job becomes something you can actually measure. Paris in the early 1800s was a city of over 1 million people, dense, vertical, and growing fast. Buildings stood 6, 7, sometimes 8 stories tall. No elevators, no internal plumbing. And on every one of those floors, people needed water. So the city ran on the backs of roughly 20,000 Paris water carriers. 20,000. That's not a guess. French municipal records from the period document this workforce in detail. Each carrier hauled somewhere between 30 and 40 liters per trip. That's roughly 8 to 10 gallons balanced on a wooden yoke across the shoulders. They'd fill up at public fountains or river access points, then climb. Staircase after staircase. 6 floors up, deliver, climb back down, refill, do it again. A single carrier might make dozens of trips per day. And here's what gets me. The average Parisian at the time consumed only about 5 liters of water per day. 5. A modern person in a developed city uses around 150. People rationed water not because they wanted to, but because every drop had a price. And that price? It wasn't simple at all. This is the part that surprises most people. Water wasn't just a product in 19th century Paris. It was a tiered commodity, with a pricing structure as detailed as anything you'd see in a modern marketplace. The first variable was source. River water, pulled straight from the Seine, was the cheapest option. It was also the dirtiest. Spring water, carried from cleaner sources outside the city, cost significantly more. If you wanted quality, you paid for it. If you couldn't afford it, you drank what the river gave you. The second variable was floor. Remember, no elevators, no pumps. A carrier climbing to the second floor charged one rate. The same delivery to the 6th floor cost considerably more. You were literally paying for human effort, measured in staircases. The higher you lived, the more your water cost. And the third variable was season. In summer, demand spiked. In winter, frozen sources could restrict supply. Prices shifted accordingly. So picture this. You're a working-class Parisian on the 5th floor. You're budgeting your water the way a modern person budgets electricity. Carefully, constantly, always aware of the cost. That's the reality this profession created. But how long could a system like that really last? In a minute, I'll show you exactly what killed it and how fast the collapse actually happened. The plumbing history of Paris is really the story of one man's obsession with modernizing a medieval city. In the 1860s, Baron Georges-Eugène Haussmann launched a massive renovation of Paris under Emperor Napoleon III. Most people know him for the wide boulevards, but the part that matters for this story is what he built underground. Haussmann oversaw the construction of a modern water supply and sewer network, hundreds of kilometers of pipes pushing clean water upward into buildings for the first time. Suddenly, water came out of a tap. No carrier needed, no staircase pricing, no yoke, no buckets, no daily negotiation at the door. And the collapse was fast. Within roughly 20 years, the entire profession, 20,000 jobs, effectively disappeared from Paris. Think about what that means. A job that had existed for 6,000 years across every major civilization was functionally erased in 2 decades by iron pipes and municipal planning. That's the speed of infrastructure. It doesn't negotiate, it just replaces. This might sound like a clean ending. Progress won, the old way died, everyone moved on. But if you think that's where this story stops, you're missing the most important part. The water carrier job is not fully extinct. Not even close. According to estimates from major global health organizations, roughly 2 billion people on this planet still lack access to reliably piped water in their homes. 2 billion. That's not a historical footnote. That's right now. In parts of sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and other regions, water carriers still operate today, sometimes with the same basic tools. A yoke, containers, human legs. The profession that Haussmann's pipes supposedly ended still exists for a massive portion of humanity. The only thing that changed is who notices. When I started researching this episode, I expected a straightforward arc. Ancient job, long run, modern technology, clean ending. But it's not a clean ending. It's a split ending. For some people, plumbing history is a chapter that closed over a century ago. For others, it hasn't started yet. And that gap, between the world that moved on and the world that's still waiting, might be the most important thing about this entire profession. Remember the hook at the top of this video? 6,000 years and this job still exists? That wasn't exaggeration, that was the literal truth. So let's pull it all together. The water carrier job began in ancient Sumer around 4000 BC. One of the true ancient professions, born the moment cities created distance between people and their water. It peaked in 19th century Paris, where 20,000 carriers turned water into a tiered commodity priced by source, by floor, and by season. The average person used 5 liters a day. Then Baron Haussmann's plumbing revolution collapsed the entire trade in about 20 years. One of the most dramatic examples of extinct delivery jobs we've ever covered on this channel. But the real takeaway is the ending that isn't an ending. 2 billion people still live without piped water. For them, water history isn't history at all. It's daily life. Important reminder, the statistics in this video reflect best available estimates from international health bodies. Exact numbers vary by year and by source, so treat them as well-supported approximations, not fixed figures. This is the longest-running forgotten profession we've found so far, and honestly, it might be the most humbling. If this episode landed for you, hit subscribe. Forgotten Trades drops a new deep dive on a lost profession regularly, and next up, we're covering the Great Horse Manure Crisis of 1894, the problem that solved itself. Trust me, that one's stranger than it sounds. Drop a comment and let me know. Did you know water carriers still exist today? I'll see you in the next one.